One of the coolest things I got to do at Gamescom was check out Starlink Battle for Atlas in full detail. I spent about 3 hours playing the game, about 45 minutes playing Starfox on the Nintendo Switch build of the game, and 2 hours on Act 2 on an Xbox One X. Now we're going to have a full hands-on preview with Starlink on the channel a bit later on. We're still finalising the coverage a little bit for that. What I can share with you right now is an interview that I had with the creative director of Starlink, Laurent Malville. We got to ask him a bit about what the game is about, what sort of content players might expect post-launch, if any at all, and how the nature of the game evolves over time and whether there's sort of any end-game content or whether it's just a case of a narrative experience. And is Starfox actually really truly exclusive to Nintendo Switch? Can that figure be used on other platforms? You can find all that out in this interview. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please consider giving us a subscribe if you haven't already, as it really helps the channel to grow. And we still have so much Gamescom coverage to get through. We seriously have got some fantastic stuff still to share with you guys. But enough from me, here's that interview.
I mean, you've got a lot of weapon choices in the game, a lot of ability to kind of mix things up. How do you achieve balance with that? Because obviously that's really tricky to kind of get that flow going appropriately throughout.
So yeah, it's a great question. It was actually a super interesting design challenge for us to make sure that all those weapons could work together, but also the different ship class categories. Fortunately, we got a super talented design team. And it's not just design, it's also like gameplay programmers. We're always we have a super cool and fun team. So it's like we're always interacting with each other, playing the game and interacting with each other. So there's always somebody's like, hey, I've been playing with those weapons. Like this, we should change that to make, so we communicate a lot like this.
Yeah.
One of the big challenge, it was that also the whole game is playable with the starter pack. And so you have to account for that you might not have all the energies, the weapons, the different weapons with you. So we had to balance the game specifically for that, so that having more weapons and more starships and more pilots provide you with more gameplay opportunities.
Yeah.
But also, if you play with the starter pack, you can achieve pretty much almost all the content of the game.
Yeah, because obviously you don't necessarily need to own the item in order to unlock it in the game. How does unlocking it in the game come about? Do you just naturally, organically do that?
So basically the way it works, so you can buy the game in 2 ways. So the physical version of the game, which is what you've played today, so with the starship. It comes with 1 starship and 3 weapons on PS4 and Xbox One, and 2 weapons on Switch, but our wings also are weapons themselves, so you could say 4 weapons at the end because you got 2 wings on that.
Yeah.
So the way it works is that if you play physical, you have to collect those extra hearts.
Okay.
So you have to buy a new ships or new pilots or weapons if you want more of those to enrich your gameplay opportunities. What you can do also is that if you have a friend who have different starship than you, for example, different weapons, if he passes you some of his parts, you can unlock them for a temporary amount of time in your save game in your console.
Right. I suppose that links me on to an interesting question, something I've been thinking about for a while. Obviously, you've got Starfox for the Switch.
Yeah.
Is it possible to play on Xbox technically, because it's the same kind of interface? You can plug it onto the holder.
So, Fox McCloud and the R-Wing are really an exclusive experience to the Nintendo Switch. All the Starlink parts are compatible any platform, except the mounts also that are specific to each platform's controller, right. But all the starships, the pilots. But really, Fox and the R-Wing are really dedicated exclusively on the Nintendo Switch.
I thought that was the case because I wasn't sure if the stand was slightly different. But so I guess I was going to ask you as well, leading to that, obviously you've got a lot of weapons, a lot of ships, a lot of things like that. You've got a right possibility there for expansion post-launch as well. Is that something you'll be thinking about already? Is that something is a bit too early to think about?
So what I can tell you is just that we're planning to support the game, of course, after launch. We're not revealing anything on that right now, so I can't really go into any details. But we're thinking of some really cool stuff for the future. Yeah.
And if it was, I mean, obviously you can't really talk about details, but if you release, say, a toy product like a wing or a ship or something like that, would you foresee that having content with it as well? I guess if I liken it to like Lego Dimensions.
So I can't really tell you more about that. Believe me, I want to say things, but
for sure,
I can't really give more details on it. But something I can tell you though, regarding to that, is that it was really important for us as a team from the beginning to have a collection that would be achievable. So we're releasing the game with the starter pack, four starship packs, 4 pilot packs, and 4 weapon packs. And and for us it was really something important to have something that it's achievable. It's not like, okay, well, there's no and inside it's like 200 starships. We wanted something that you feel you can collect as a player. So that was really important for us. And about the post-launch, again, like we'll share more as we get closer to the release. But right now, we're really focused on launch date. That's the big focus for us.
I suppose then, talking about the base game that's coming out already. Obviously, you've got 7 planets you've talked about, and you've got a lot of optional objectives within that. Is there a sort of an end game to Starlink in terms of, say, for instance, you've upgraded all your modifications, your ships are like max XP. Could you then go and fight like a bigger boss or something like that?
Yeah. So there's like 2. It's funny because the game is highly systemic, and I don't know if you've seen a lot of emergent moment happening when you were playing it, particularly in Act 2, because the game opens up more as you progress through the events of Starlink. The story, there's a moment in the story where you'll reach the end of something. I don't want to spoil it too much, but you'll reach the end of something. But what's happening is that as you play through the game, the systems open up more and more. And there's a moment in the game where it's really about this big tug of war between the alliance and how many of the faction outposts you ally to your cause against the progression of the Forgotten Legion. So the game transforms at one point into this big meta battle over Atlas, and this is something that like is purely systemically driven. So at this point, in terms of hours you can spend on it, it's pretty big, because it's like depending on how you want to secure this planet versus this planet, what type of outposts you're going to be building there versus there. So this is kind of the 2 approach in terms of time, like the storyline and the big systemic aspect of the game that opens itself as you get closer.
Quickly interrupt the interview here, as we actually had a section in this transcript where the creative director was unsure whether the information he was giving me could actually be announced during this run of coverage. Having spoken to Ubisoft about this, they have given me a pre-prepared answer instead, as some of the information was slightly too early for the team to talk about. So the question was, is there any particular benefit to spending more time on one planet compared to another? And this is the response that we got from Ubisoft. The world of Starlink is completely open. When you play the game, you can open the star map at any point, and in the star map you can see all the different planets. On each of these you will be able to encounter different factions, which you will be able to assist in their fight against the Legion. The more you help them, the more they will provide you with different useful bonuses, which will in turn help you. So if you like a particular bonus that an alliance with a certain faction provides you, you can have an interest in spending more time on a certain planet. The dynamics start to take shape closer to the end game when battle reaches its full scale over the full star system. Apologies for that brief interruption. As I said, the creative director did slightly let a few details slip, which I can't go into details about, unfortunately. You'll all find out soon enough, though, as Starlink is out very, very soon. But let's continue with the rest of this.
In terms of exploring and scanning and spending time doing that, is it just modifications that you get as a kind of a reward for that, or are there other kind of perks that you might get for doing that, for spending that time?
Yeah, so there's 3 big areas of progression, I would say, in the game. The first one is the XP you extract from the weapons on the starship for your pilot. And you've seen the skill tree. Each pilot has a different skill tree. And the cool thing in the skill tree is that it's not just about making your pilot ability better. Some of the skills that you can get, depending on the pilot, they can benefit your entire collection. Like Mason, for example, can increase the amount of XP, the speed rate at which you gain XP for all the other pilots of your collection. So that's kind of a collective skill update. So that's one system. The second one is the mod system that you've seen. So you can all of your starships and weapons have modification slots. They can improve the core of the starship or the armor of the starship, or there's also some booster modification slots that are just about adjusting some stats. And those mods, they have different levels. So they can be common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary. So as you progress through the game, you'll be able to collect higher and higher level of mods that you can use in your starship and weapons. And even later in the game, I don't know if you've seen in this preview here, but there's in the menu there's the Equinox upgrade menu. So the Equinox, your mothership, can be you can continue the improvements on your Equinox, and some of these improvements are going to make you able, for example, to fuse some mods together. So if you fuse two uncommon mods together, you're going to get a level 2 mod out of that.
Right.
So you're going to be able like this to play with that progression system. So that's for the second one, and the third one is really what we were talking about before. So it's at the point of where the battle against the Forgotten Legion reaches its peak. You're going to be able to build outposts and to really secure the alliance on a planet versus another, and have that full-scale open source system battle happening. And that is kind of like the third progression system that can happen in the game. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you had fun with the game.
It was fantastic.